Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again with another Film Fanatic show. Here it is. It's about Sunday at about 8:46. Beautiful day so far. It's supposed to be a really nice day. Not. It's been pretty humid. The weather has been either pretty hot and humid or rainy. So this week was actually kind of nice. Yesterday was kind of miserable outside. It was really nice in the morning. Yesterday was Saturday. It was really nice in the morning, and then also in the afternoon. I had a gig last night, yesterday, late in the day, that went till about 8 o'clock or so, and I played a show with this guy, super cool guy, one of the nicest people I've ever met, really talented, Troy Youngblood, and I played with him, and then another local musician that he also plays with all the time, Dan Miller, who plays bass. And again, two of the coolest people you will ever meet, some of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. They are, and they're also very talented, and they play pretty unique style. It's it's like a combination of like there's definitely a blues kind of influence, but it's got a lot of soul, like R&B kind of. It's got a big like R&B element to it. There's also the other thing that I really love about their music is that it has a very psychedelic rock vibe also. And a lot of the songs that they play, there's a lot of jamming, and it's like I don't know, it's very cool. Like it's not really I don't know. I think they have a really unique sound. Those guys. It's I don't really hear too many people doing what they do. And I'm generally a fan of his music, and I met him. I started playing some gigs with Troy last summer, and it was through a mutual friend who used to play with him, still does play with him, and he was playing drums with him regularly, and then he also uh, took a little bit of a break and then asked me about filling in for some gigs for him. So I ended up doing a couple of gigs in the beginning of the summer last year with Troy and Dan, and and it was I don't know, it was a lot of fun. And then he had asked me about playing more gigs, so then I ended up playing a pretty decent amount of gigs after that. And so it was cool. It was cool. And again, it's like the gigs that he has are usually really nice. They pay pretty well. They're and I don't know, I kind of like the style a lot of what they do. And during that time, I had heard of his name because I know he plays gigs all the time. It's his source of income. So he's playing all the time every weekend. So I've always heard his name, but I never got to meet him, and I never heard his music. And then I started to go see him play on a couple. I saw him play a few other times. During that time, I started to play with him to try to get more familiar with the music and the whole kind of vibe. And very very cool. But we had a gig last night at Liberty Craft Brewing, and it was fun, but it was also so incredibly miserable. And it was nothing to do with those guys. It was the weather. So it was crazy because I when I left my house yesterday to go set up and to go play for this gig, it was like 83 degrees when I left here. And the venue that we played at, Lake St. George Brewing, which is such an awesome venue. And again, it's an outside venue where, they have a little bit of coverage, but not a lot. And you have to, you know, if the weather is bad, you have to really figure out what you're going to do or it will get canceled. And there was talk, well, we knew that the weather might turn really badly yesterday. But I didn't realize how bad it was going to turn. And when we got there, I got there before those guys. And I was talking to the owner and I said, okay, I'll just wait, hang tight until they get here and make a plan instead of setting everything up. And then they got there, and then we decided to set up at on the stage. They have a couple of locations that you have that you can set up as an option. So we ended up setting up on this stage that they built this year. But we knew we were running a risk because by 8 o'clock, 7:30, it was supposed to be like torrential downpour. So I'm not so worried about my drums getting a little bit wet. Obviously, don't want them to get wet. I don't want them to get wet, but or in lots of rain. But I don't want to. I can push it a little bit, and I can usually cover my butt a little bit. But when it comes to electronics, that's kind of a different story. So we ended up doing it. We ended up setting up, and as we were setting up, it started getting really dark, and it was crazy because when I got to the venue, it was really humid, it was hot, and it was a sunny, beautiful day like today. And and at first it was 50% chance of rain, and then it was 90% a chance of rain, and by the time we were all set up, then it was 100%. And within like 5 minutes or so into our set, it started raining, and then it just got more and more intense. And we got a little bit of a late start, but by the time we were like maybe an hour or so into our set, it was just torrential downpour, and it was still early. It was like 5, 6 o'clock, so it wasn't that late, and it was super dark out, and it just got worse. It just got worse and worse and worse. And then all these winds started moving in, and it got super cold. I showed up with wearing shorts. I didn't bring a jacket, and I had a light shirt because it was pretty hot out. I didn't have any layers, and we were all crammed under this gazebo, like literally under in each other's armpits, playing, and it was just the rain was just pouring in. So most of the stuff didn't get wet, but everything did get wet, and I couldn't believe we were playing in those conditions. I couldn't believe it. The worst part for me was the cold because it was chilly. It got down to like the 50s, but the wind was like howling, and I'm like, what is going on here? Here it is, practically late July. I leave the house. I left the house, and I'm like, I looked at the temperature, and it was like 83, 84 degrees. And here I am playing in this little gazebo, and it's just downpouring, and it's windy as all hell, and I'm freezing my butt off. And at one point, I was like actually shaking because I was cold. The cold was the worst part. If it wasn't as cold, I could have got through it. But at one point, I got too cold, and I was just like, I need to take a break. So we played for like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and it was too cold. I was freezing, so I told Troy I gotta take a break. So we took a break, and actually went in my car to take a break, and it was still just downpouring, and I turned the heat up in my car all the way, with my windows up, in July. It's just like these weather patterns are just fucking insane. Like I'd never seen this before. And then it stopped raining for a little while, for a brief time, and it was getting to be the time that we needed to kind of end. So we decided to play one more song, and we played the last tune that we were gonna play, and then we started slowly packing up. And at that point, it just started all over again. The storm just kicked back in, and it just got worse. And it's just like it was crazy. And we ended up having to load the gear back into our cars in torrential downpour. It was crazy. We had a bunch of towels and wiped stuff down. I don't think anything got damaged, but Jesus Christ, yeah, I'd never been in that kind of situation during the summer where I was like playing and it was freezing, like legitimately cold. Just these weather, the weather patterns that we're having are just crazy. Just I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. And the fact that it was like, that it's late July, and the temperature shifts, and when I finally came home, I like closed all the windows in my house. I put on long pants. I put on a long sleeve shirt. I actually put on a flannel. I put on a layer of another, probably another layer of a shirt, and I was cold until I warmed up. It was like I was gonna go out to see my friend's band, who I was supposed to play a gig with them last night, but the time would have been too close. I wouldn't have been able to make it there on time. So they got a sub. This really great drummer friend of mine was playing with them, and I was gonna go. I had the plan to drive down there to check them out, but I came home and I was just like, I'm just gonna chill out. I'm you know, kind of cold, and I made some dinner and stuff, and just kind of chilled out. So I didn't end up going, but under different circumstances I would have gone. But anyway, yeah, life in Maine. Life is as a musician in Maine. It's crazy. So today I have another show with, and this is with Quantum. We're going to be playing today at 2 o'clock at Primo in Rockland, which is it's a gig I'm really excited about. A little nervous about, but I'm really excited about to be playing there. We it's a venue or a spot that I never thought we would, quite honestly, never have a chance in hell of being able to play. And it's overall, it's probably my favorite venue. I just think it's such an awesome space. So we were able to get a gig there this year. So today we're playing there at 2 o'clock. So if you're around, and it's a free show. It's a really great, atmosphere. They have amazing food and drinks, and I think the weather's supposed to be nice. Hopefully, So 2 to 4. So come on by if you're around, and maybe maybe it will lead to some other things there. Maybe not, but we'll see. So come on by. Um, so today's show is going to be, I'm going to be doing coverage of another franchise. I like doing I like doing coverages, or a coverage of a complete series. I've been doing those pretty sporadically, but I've done quite a few of them. I did one on the Halloween franchise. I've done one on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, the Evil Dead franchise. I've done some TV series, True Detective season one. There's been a few others that I've done. The Psycho movies, actually. I did a series of all of those movies. That was very cool. That was one of the last ones I did. So it's been a little while. I did the Avengers. I did that whole series. So I enjoy it quite a bit. I like to dive into them, and also, for the most part, when I'm doing these shows where I'm doing a whole series, I will like watch them more or less in succession, to kind of re see them in a different context, like where they're, I'm watching them back to back, and it can be a totally different, kind of experience, for good or bad. And so that's what today's show is going to be. And today is on the Mad Max series, starring, of course, Mel Gibson, Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, Tina Turner. So I am a huge, huge fan of George Miller, the director, an amazing, amazing director from Australia. And my history with this whole franchise is interesting. Today's show is going to be on the very original, and that is the original Mad Max. This movie is so badass. The whole series, for the most part, is just incredible. But this movie itself is just so raw and in your face. And it's interesting. I was pretty late to the game to seeing this movie. The first movie I ever saw in the franchise, and I think overall it's probably my favorite, is The Road Warrior. I used to watch that movie routinely as a kid. I don't own it on DVD or Blu-ray, which is so weird. I've been looking for a long time trying to find a really good edition of that on Blu-ray or 4K, like a collector's edition, and I have had no luck finding that, which I have just been so surprised by, kind of flabbergasted by, that I can't find it. I don't know. I don't really know what that's about. Um, and I grew up watching that movie. I have it on. I have it on DVD. No, actually, I don't. I have it on VHS, which is just crazy. So I've only seen that movie. I've never actually even seen it on Blu-ray, which is crazy and ridiculous. And for so long, for years, years and years, like I said, I saw the Road Warrior repeatedly as a kid, and I've always loved that movie. I was just always enamored with it. I've always been a big fan. It's definitely part of the science fiction genre, which is one of my favorites. My my second favorite style of filmmaking. And very much a post-apocalyptic thing. It's always these films are always they take place in the in the sequence of where there's been a a complete collapse of society. So, and I've always felt that these movies are like the epitome of like the whole post-apocalyptic uh, scenario, and I think it's very realistic. I think George Miller not only is a brilliant filmmaker and he was so ahead of his time. I just think he also uh, I think he's a revolutionary director. What he's able to do, um, amazing. And it wasn't until like probably maybe 10 years ago when I realized, and I thought Road Warrior, like I said, growing up as a kid, I always thought, I've been a big fan of the series. I always thought Road Warrior was the first film in the franchise. You know, I for some reason, and I always thought there was only two movies. It was like Mad Max, I mean Road Warrior, and Beyond Thunderdome. I always thought as a kid that that's what the only movies that existed in the franchise. It was just two movies, and obviously Beyond Thunderdome, starring Tina Turner, is kind of a terrible movie. I never really liked that movie as a kid, but The Road Warrior is, just amazing. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago or so that I realized that it was actually a sequel, and I felt so dumb and stupid. And I that's when I realized that The Road Warrior is actually a sequel to the original Mad Max. And I was blown away by that. And a friend of mine turned me on to that movie, Mad Max, and it was the first movie. It was Mel Gibson's first role as an actor. It was the first in the franchise. It came out in 1979, and he had a copy of it, I think, on DVD, and he let me borrow it, and I fell in love with this movie, and I eventually bought it. I have it on DVD. I don't have this on Blu-ray either, which again, I just don't get it. I don't have it. I have the last one in the franchise, Beyond Fury Road, which is a masterpiece. In some ways, it's probably the best movie in the franchise. That came out a few years back. That movie is an unparalleled masterpiece. I have that on Blu-ray. I was able to find it really quickly. It was a huge movie when it came out, but I was able to find it right away on Blu-ray, and I snagged it up. And and that movie is just it's jaw dropping. But I have to say, Mad Max, the original one, 1979, is really awesome. I mean, it really is. It's super gritty. It's so brutal. It's super violent. It's got the famous villain, the Toe Cutter, in it, and the action sequences are just so amazing. And when you think about this came out in '79 and how groundbreaking of a film this is, or it was, or it still is, with the cinematography, the action sequences, everything is. There's such a heavy reliance on practical effects. all the stunt work, like it's legitimately insane, and it was very dangerous what they actually had to go through. And unparalleled. George Miller really set the bar so high in general for action films, but with this franchise, I mean, amazing. And like I said, my favorite one is the Road Warrior, just because, well, a lot of it has to do with nostalgia, because I just grew up watching that movie and I just love that movie, and I've seen that movie definitely the most out of the entire franchise. But I really, and I kicked myself when I realized how late to the game I was. But I really do love Mad Max. I think overall, again, like I said, the best one in the franchise is Fury Road. Like, that movie is just next level. But The Road Warrior probably is my favorite. But this movie is so great. It's like a gritty documentary. It's so violent, and it's a little bit more. Well, it's more low budget compared to the rest of the films in the franchise, and it's definitely more gritty, and you see it on the big screen. So it gives it this extra level of dirtiness. And I'm all about movies that have that super rawness to it, and this movie is kind of the epitome of that. Just some of the most amazing action sequences ever uh, captured on screen. And, what George Miller was able to do as a director, considering that this came out in the late 70s, 79, is just unparalleled. And these movies have gone on to be a massive, massive franchise. And in particular, this movie, Road Warrior. And, and I think that really propelled the success of Fury Road when that came out, because that was a major, major, big blockbuster when that movie came out. And there's going to be a sequel, or actually, I don't know if it's a sequel or a prequel, where it's going to be set around the character that Charlize Theron played in Fury Road, Mysterioso. It's going to be set on her around her character, I believe. And I think it's all shot. I think they shot it last year, and I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I think pretty soon. So that's very exciting, and that was a result, I think, because, well, I think George Miller had the intention to kind of keep making more movies, but I think because of how successful Fury Road was, that really, he really decided to go full on and to make another movie. So I'm very excited about that. I don't know when that's coming out. I thought it was coming out sooner. I believe it was shot all last summer. I believe it was. I think they shot it in pretty much. It was all shot like a year ago in June and July. But I haven't really heard anything. But I know it's definitely coming out. And again, I need to buy Mad Max. I need to buy this on Blu-ray. This DVD collection or edition is actually really good. It's pretty good quality. There's some special features on here that are kind of interesting. There's some interviews with Mel Gibson and George Miller. But again, I want to hold out. When I see a Blu-ray copy of this movie, I will definitely snag it up. But I'm amazed on how hard it's been to find copies of this on Blu-ray, and especially Road Warrior. I've seen the Road Warrior a lot on Blu-ray in my travels, but there's like zero special features, and I'm looking for like maybe a special edition or like an anniversary edition, a Blu-ray 4K version. And that I can't find any. The versions that I have come across have always been, which should still be awesome, and I probably will just buy it because I can't find it. I can't find a special edition. But the versions I have seen and come across are more or less like, kind of standard DVD, standard Blu-ray versions. which would still be great. But I'm holding out. And the same thing especially goes for the original Mad Max. So 1979, what a year! You know, it ushered in Mel Gibson's career, put George Miller on the map as you know one of the greatest action directors ever. Yeah, amazing, amazing movie. So stay tuned. I'm going to be doing Road Warrior next. I'm going to do coverage of all of these movies. So I'm very excited. So this is Jason Dean. Enjoy the day, and we will see you soon. Peace.